What's up everyone, my name's PlatinumHowler and today I'm bringing you my week 1 game of the IBL D-League versus the Brisbane Scythers, coached by D Willy. Before I get into the team that I brought, let's go over D Willy's team. His team consists of Celesteela, Clefable, Arcanine, Tangrowth, Latios, Scolipede, Mega Mawile, Zebstrika, Donphan, Venomoth, and Masquerain. As highlighted, his 3 Z users are Scolipede, Zebstrika, and Venomoth. So if you're looking at his team and you're thinking, oh goodness Howler, what in the world is this that you're going up against? How can you possibly manage to overcome this roster that D Willy has? Well, you have another thing coming, because this is every week in the IBL D-League. Every single team is crazy busted like D Willy's. Just look at his Fairy Dragon Steel Core of Celesteela, Clefable, and Latios. I think it's hilarious that that's his core because it couldn't be any more similar to my Fairy Dragon Steel Core. He's got Celesteela Steel Flying, I have Skarmory Steel Flying. He's got Clefable, which is a pure fairy just like Sylveon, and he's got Latios, whereas I have Latias. So our cores are about as similar as you can get. But the cherry on top of all that would be him having Mega Mawile, which is the single hardest hitting Pokemon in the entire game. Speaking of Mawile, D Willy has the ability to exploit a very powerful combination of Scolipede and Mega Mawile. Obviously Scolipede gets speed boost plus baton pass, so it's able to easily baton pass speed into Mega Mawile, and that is legal in this league. You are allowed to baton pass speed so long as you don't also pass other stats. So Scolipede wouldn't be able to pass a Swords Dance and a speed boost to Mega Mawile at the same time. He also has 2 other bug types on his team in Venomoth and Masquerain that have the ability to do the same thing. They both get Baton Pass, but while neither has access to the speed boost ability, they can use agility to boost their speed and pass speed into Mawile that way. As scary as that sounds to go up against, I'm actually not too afraid of that combination, as you will find out later on. I'm not about to sit here and hum and haw over which 6 Mons out of the 11 that he has on his roster I think he's going to bring to this game. The reality is you have to prepare for all 11 Mons, otherwise you could lose the game, and we ain't out here trying to lose this battle. So all I know is that the biggest threats to my team, I would say, are definitely Latios, as it outspeeds everything that I've brought to this game. It outspeeds. It speed ties with my Latias, which I'm not bringing, and it speed ties with, or it doesn't speed tie, but it's slower than my Raikou, which I did want to bring, but I just couldn't fit it onto this build. Obviously, Mega Mawile is a threat to every team that it goes up against. I would say actually Arcanine, an offensive Arcanine set, could also cause me some trouble. And I do also think that he's going to bring Tangrowth as his response to Mega Gyarados. So those are 4 Mons that I can definitely see him bringing. As for the rest, I am not going to speculate. I'm going to prepare for all 11 and hope for the best. The first Mon on our team is going to be Hanuman, our Infernape, our primary Z captain holding the Firium Z this week. It's going to be a physical Infernape with Swords Dance, Flare Blitz, Earthquake, and Mach Punch. The speed investment on Infernape is enough to outspeed a max speed Jolly Arcanine. It's going to be faster than everything on his team except for Latios and Scolipede and Zebstrika, but let's be real, Zebstrika is an Unmon. I'm not worried about it. If you look at his team, he is extremely weak to fire-type moves. His only 2 resistances are Arcanine and Latios. Arcanine could have Flash Fire, so I'll have to be careful about it potentially switching in and getting a Flash Fire boost off of my Flare Blitz. But if it does come in and that's the response to Infernape, Arcanine won't have Intimidate, it won't lower Infernape's attack, and I'll be able to do more damage to it with Earthquake. There's really no reason for me to have close combat on this set. close combat doesn't hit a single mon on his team super effectively. So if I get Infernape in, I'm pretty much always going to be clicking a fire type move. I didn't need any other moves, so I just put Mach Punch on there for the last move if I needed priority in a pinch. Mach Punch can take out a weakened Scolipede, although it is 4 times resisted, but if it is low enough, Mach Punch can do the trick to it. And as well, Mach Punch is going to do a lot to a Zebstrika. It can pick off a weakened Latios, and it can also out-prioritize Mega Mawile's Sucker Punch. So if I can, if I keep Mach Punch hidden, if I don't reveal it for long enough in the game, then I can potentially go for Mach Punch, out-prioritize the Mawile Sucker Punch, and Sucker Punch will fail. So that could be a clutch way for me to wear down the Mawile in the late game. The one form of priority that I do not out-prioritize under any circumstances is Arcanine's extreme speed, so I will have to be careful not to let my Infernape get too weakened to the point where Arcanine could potentially pick it off with an extreme speed. This Infernape set has great cleaning potential and is the primary win con of this team. Next on the team, we have our Life Orb mixed offensive Nidoqueen. Just like Infernape, we have the fire and ground coverage on Nidoqueen with Flamethrower and Earth Power, and we also have Poison Jab to hit on the physical side, and I think Poison Jab is going to be more effective than Sludge Wave against the likes of Clefable and Latios. I also have Substitute on this as the last move. Already with Poison Jab, Earth Power, and Flamethrower, that's really good coverage against this team. So if I'm able to get Nidoqueen in against something that it threatens out, such as Tangrowth, and I can substitute on the predicted switch, that way I don't have to predict what his switch-in is going to be. I don't have to predict if he's going to switch in something like a Celesteela to take a predicted Poison-type move, or if he's going to switch in a Latios to take a predicted Fire-type move. Instead, I can just get the substitute off and I can hide behind a sub while I choose the best coverage option to hit whatever his switch in is going to be. So if I can force something out and get a substitute out with his Nidoqueen, it's pretty much guaranteed to get at least 1 kill. Even though I have a negative speed nature on this Nidoqueen, I toss the remaining EVs into speed so that I can outspeed a Celesteela or any base 60 or slower mon that he has that's trying to potentially speed creep a Skarmory. I'd like to be able to get Nidoqueen in as often as possible in the early game against his walls that it threatens out to be able to put a dent into his team early on. Next up, we have Nimblefally, the most standard Sylveon you've ever seen. Sylveon is primarily here to deal with Latios, as the first 2 mons on my team, my most potent offensive mons in this matchup, do not like dealing well with Latios. Latios is so strong that with a timid nature and even with a max HP and defense invested Sylveon, a Life Orb Latios has the potential to 2-hit KO a Sylveon with Psyshock. With Psyshock plus Rocks damage, that is. So that's why Sylveon's holding the Citrus Berry. In case it is ever brought down below 50% on switch into Latios, it will eat its Citrus Berry and it will not be able to be 2-hit KO'd unless one of those attacks gets a critical hit. But let's just cross our fingers and hope that doesn't happen. Toxic this week is in its more flexible 4th move slot, and that will be especially useful for helping chip down the Arcanine and the Tangrowth. Next up on our team is Nimrod, our shiny Mega Gyarados, our #mascot Mega. This is a very bulky Mega Gyarados that's designed to check Arcanine as well as Latios to an extent. It's going to be able to check Latios a lot better after it Mega Evolves when it gains the Dark typing. Then it will be immune to Latios' Psychic type attacks, and also it'll have more special defense, so it'll able to just take hits better in general. Even though this is the primary defensive response to Arcanine, I will have to be very careful switching it in, especially prior to Mega Evolution, because Arcanine could easily predict this to be the switch in and go for a Wild Charge. Waterfall and Crunch are my two attacking moves that are going to be able to hit Arcanine and Latios super effectively, respectively, and not one single mon on his team can resist the combination of both. I also have Rest and Sleep Talk just to help for longevity's sake. I didn't need Dragon Dance. I wasn't using this as the win con. I was using this as just something that could take on the two biggest offensive threats to my team, being Arcanine and Latios. The special defense and HP on Gyarados is going to be enough to survive a +1 Life Orb Draco Meteor from Tim and Latios from full HP. By extension, that also means I'll be able to survive a +1 Life Orb Thunderbolt, because a Stab Draco Meteor actually from a Latios actually does more damage than a Thunderbolt. The fifth Mon on our team is the most important Pokemon on this team. This is Skarmory. Skarmory is absolutely vital for making sure that we do not lose to a speed passing Mega Mawile, or just Mega Mawile in general. It is also going to be our Stealth Rocker this week. I actually imagine Stealth Rocks not being easy to get up in this game. I have to keep Skarmory as healthy as possible. I cannot afford to leave Skarmory in against something like a Clefable and risk Skarmory taking a Flamethrower, because then that's going to make it not nearly as good a check to Mega Mawile. It's not going to be able to check Mega Mawile at all, actually, if it gets weakened that much. I cannot let this get weakened at all, so getting Stealth Rocks up is going to be hard. I would very much like to get them up to chip down Arcanine especially, and also Latios, but like I said, Skarmory is so important to this team. There's no way that I can let it get weakened. Stealth Rock Roost. Counter is for Mega Mawile. Counter is the only way that I can actually deal damage with Skarmory to Mega Mawile, and that's also the reason why I have Drill Peck instead of Brave Bird, because Brave Bird is a egg move for Skarmory dating back to Gen 4, and the only way you can get Counter is by Move Tutor in Fire Red and Leaf Green, so Counter and Brave Bird together were incompatible, unfortunately. I had to have a flying type move on this Skarmory because he has 3 bug types that have the ability to pass speed into Mega Mawile. I had to be able to design this as best as possible to be able to deal with the 3 bug types and Mega Mawile at the same time. The Wakan Berry is so it can eat a Thunder Punch from a Mega Mawile. Thunder Punch is Mawile's best way of hitting Skarmory. It thankfully does not get Fire Punch, so I don't have to guess whether or not he would bring Thunder Punch or Fire Punch for Skarmory. It does get Fire Fang, but that's 10 base points weaker than Thunder Punch, so if he wants to bring that and totally screw me over, then props to him. You may also notice that I have a negative speed nature on this Skarmory as well, with only 5 IVs in speed, and this is for one specific reason, and I always do this whenever I go up against a Donphan with a Skarmory. I always want to underspeed the Donphan. I have a minus speed nature and low IVs in speed so that I can be slower than Donphan. Otherwise, I would not be able to safely roost against a Donphan. I would like to be able to switch my Skarmory in and safely roost without him predicting my roost and then going for a super effective Earthquake since I've lost my flying typing. By being slower, he will never be able to Earthquake me on my roost and actually do damage unless he himself is also a negative speed nature. Finally, we have Stranger Tide, our Delmise. This is going to be our Rapid Spinner in this match. I desperately needed some form of hazard removal against a team that has the ability to set sticky webs. And also Delmise is going to be able to take on Donphan exceptionally well, resist Donphan's Earthquake, and also block Donphan's Rapid Spin. Anchor Shot is my steal move of choice. It's going to be able to trap in a Celesteela or a Tangrowth, prevent them from switching out, and I'll be able to wear them down with Anchor Shot, Knock Off, and then I have Synthesis to keep my Dhelmise relatively healthy. Heavy Slam actually isn't at full power for Celesteela against Dhelmise. Dhelmise is actually very heavy, so Heavy Slam is only 100 base power versus Dhelmise instead of 120, so that's good. I imagine he will have Flamethrower on his Celesteela though to hit the Skarmories, so that's going to be problematic to deal with for Dhelmise, at least a little bit. But as long as I can knock off his leftovers and prevent him from recovering more HP with Leech Seed, I am happy with Dhelmise. Dhelmise's other key role is to deal with a Suicide Lead Scolipede. I can foresee him using a Scolipede to set hazards, and then once it gets low, it can Endeavor my Skarmory and weaken that to the point where it can no longer be a check to Mega Mawile. So Dhelmise is going to be very important to, because it's a ghost type, it's going to be immune to Endeavor. I will, if he leads Scolipede and starts setting hazards, I will automatically suspect that he is an Endeavor Scolipede, and I can go into this Dhelmise and get rid of his hazards and prevent him from going for Endeavor and weakening my Skarmory so that Mawile can just completely run through my team. Those are the 6 we're going to be bringing this week against D Willy, and I'll be right back with the battle. Alright, here we are with the battle, and looking at team preview, I see the Arcanine, the Latios, and the Mega Mawile, the 3 main offensive threats that I was expecting, so no surprises there. We do see the Masquerain as well, so that is almost certainly going to be a Suicide Lead to set Sticky Webs against my team, which Dhelmise will be able to get rid of with no issue, seeing as he has no Ghost type on his roster. We also see the Celesteela there, which, because he has a more offensive Steel type in Mega Mawile to complement the Celesteela, I am thinking the Celesteela is going to be more of a standard defensive set, the knowing one with Leech Seed and stuff like that. And then instead of the Tangrowth, we do see the Clefable, which is more than likely going to be the Mega Gyarados check. So that's likely going to be having a next to max physical bulk. So I'm going to decide to lead with my Nidoqueen because it's the best lead against his team, against anything that's not named Latios. It's going to be able to get damage off on everything, but of course he is going to lead with the Masquerain. There's no surprise there. Intimidate's going to drop my attack, so that's going to reduce my damage output for Poison Jab, but I won't be clicking Poison Jab against this Masquerain. I'm going to go for a Flamethrower, bring it down to its Sash, and sadly, because I am Sheer Force, there's no chance of me getting a burn to one-hit KO this and save me from taking this Hydro Pump, which I do eat even with no defensive investment whatsoever. I do eat it, yes, but that is going to bring me down low enough where I don't have enough HP remaining to set up a substitute against something else later in the game. So that's why I decide to let Nidoqueen go down here to this Latios. And I see that this Latios isn't holding a Life Orb, so I'm assuming it's going to be a Choice Scarf set. I'm pretty confident it's going to be locked into Psychic here, so I can go into Gyarados and threaten the Mega Evolution. When I gain my Dark typing, I'd be immune to the Psychic, and I can pull a double, expecting his Clefable to come in, bring in my Dhelmise so I can Rapid Spin the webs away immediately. He's going to go for a Protect here, which is really, really good information for me. It's going to help me figure out what this Clefable, the rest of this Clefable's moveset is going to be for the rest of the game. So course, he's going to go into his Arcanine now, which is a great switch into the Dhelmise, and I just click Rapid Spin twice. Get these webs away from me. I knew this Arcanine was probably going to be coming in. That chip damage from Rapid Spin is also really good to see that it reveals he has Leftovers Arcanine. So I see that he's not Flash Fire for my Infernape, and I presume now that he's going to be more of a defensive set rather than an offensive set. So because of that, I'm going to go into my Sylveon to scout out what this Arcanine might want to do. He's going to get a Toxic on me, which is unfortunate, but Sylveon should still be able to do its job relatively well in this game, even with a Toxic. Predicting a switch out, or just really not necessarily predicting a switch out, but just wanting to scout what his play was. I'm going to throw up a Wish as he goes into Celesteela, and I want to pressure him immediately now by making a hard switch into my Infernape. I know I should be able to eat anything that he wants to go for, and the Wish is going to heal me back up. So now, once again, predicting him to switch out, I'm going to go for a Swords Dance and try to force his hand or catch him off guard here, as he's going to bring the Arcanine right back in. Swords Dance is going to bring me down from -1 attack to +1 attack, and now I can threaten this Arcanine with a big Earthquake. Unfortunately, he is going to make the correct double switch, predicting my Earthquake, and go into Latios. Latios will take no damage from this Earthquake and will force out my Infernape, but I'm completely fine with this. I have a safe switch. I have a couple safe switches into this Latios, but because my Sylveon is Toxic, I want to keep up offensive momentum and go into my Gyarados, which is pretty darn specially bulky and able to take that Psychic relatively well, even having not Mega Evolved yet. So now I'm going to be able to force him out. As he brings the Clefable in again, I know that the Clefable's coming in, so I'm just going to click Waterfall against it. I'm honestly have to say that I'm pretty thankful that Latios didn't predict the Gyarados to be the switch in and go for a Thunderbolt. Otherwise, this game could have gone a lot differently. I was pretty confident that he would go for the Psychic with a +1 Infernape sitting in front of him. Because I have seen Protect from this Clefable now, I'm thinking that it's a lot less likely to be carrying a move to hit my Skarmory, as he does just go for a Moonblast on my switch out of Gyarados, and I want to get my rocks up. I want to make sure I have my rocks up to wear down the likes of Latios and Arcanine especially. So he's going to switch out the Clefable right away. I'm going to set up the rocks and get Skarmory right out of here, because there's nothing at all that I can do to a Celesteela. And because I had seen Iron Head from this Celesteela before, I probably should have clicked in my mind at that point that this was going to be an autotomized Celesteela, but for some reason it didn't. No matter though, Gyarados is going to be able to take this on regardless. There's not much that a Celesteela can do to me besides Earthquake. From this range, I can still take 2 of those. So on this turn, I'm going to go for a Crunch rather than a Waterfall. Of course, I don't have any chance to flinch the Celesteela by going for a Waterfall. So if I have the opportunity to get a defense drop with Crunch, I'm going to go for that. The second Earthquake is not going to knock me out, and I'm going to be able to rest all the way back up to full HP. So he's now going to see that I can comfortably take on this Celesteela with my Mega Gyarados. All I need to do is roll one of my 2 attacks with Sleep Talk, and this Celesteela is going to be gone. So in comes the Clefable, and I'm going to click Sleep Talk to burn my first turn of sleep, and unfortunately I am going to get Rest. No matter though, Leftovers are going to come back out, and I want to pull a switch into my Dhelmise on this turn to threaten him with a Steel-type move. He's going to go for a Stealth Rocks, so I had the option to Rapid Spin away the rocks here, but I'm actually going to choose to go for an Anchor Shot instead. I'm not totally sure if his Clefable feels safe staying in against my Dhelmise, so I am going to decide to reveal the Anchor Shot here. Rocks don't do too much of a number on my team, so I could live with them being up for the time being. Arcanine is going to switch in again and take the rocks damage on his end, and I'm going to crit the Anchor Shot against the Arcanine. So this is actually a pretty... the crit doesn't actually matter because either way his best play was to go for a Morning Sun here because Gyarados was bound to be my switch in, and him being a more defensive variant of Arcanine, he really cannot do anything to this Gyarados. He can't Toxic it because I'm already sleeping. So his best play would have been to go for Morning Sun regardless, which would bring him back up to full HP. He had no opportunity to pull a double switch on that turn because Anchor Shot does trap you in. The double switch is not an option on that in that scenario with me clicking Anchor Shot. So that's one of the cool things about Anchor Shot, preventing your opponent from making aggressive double switches like that. But now with my Gyarados asleep, he's going to make an aggressive switch into the Mawile as I'm going to roll Crunch, which was my least powerful of the two attacks against this Mawile, but it's still going to get some good damage off as I get the Skarmory in now. Skarmory's going to take the rocks damage, so I'm a little bit unsure at this point if I'll be able to take the hits that I need it to from this monster. But thankfully he does go for the Play Rough on this turn rather than a Thunder Punch, because Thunder Punch also would have been able to deal good damage to my Mega Gyarados that was in there. So I eat the Play Rough. Thanks to my Wakan Berry, I eat the first Thunder Punch, and I'm going to be able to roost up to a range where I can survive a second Thunder Punch, and this incoming counter is going to be able to finish off this Mawile. I'm going to live the Thunder Punch on 9 HP, go for a counter, and this Mawile is gone. Threat is dealt with, and now I'm looking to be in a very, very good spot in this game with Mawile out of the picture. Celesteela is going to come in. Because Mawile is gone now, that my Skarmory doesn't have much use left remaining in this game, so I'm going to let it go down to a Flamethrower as he gets an attack boost from Beast Boost. And so now I'm going to go into my Infernape to get a kill. There's not much he wants to come in on a Flare Blitz. I guess he's just sacking his Celesteela at this point because it is pretty low. And he does the reveal the Occaberry. So flashback to the first turn that I had Infernape in against this Celesteela, and he switched out from full HP, knowing full well that he had an Occaberry and Earthquake on his set, which he also hadn't revealed at that point. I think switching out that Celesteela against my Infernape the first time was a big misplay, because he would have been able to take any hit that I wanted to go for with Infernape and retaliate with a big Earthquake. And Celesteela really didn't end up doing that much else in the game, so Latios comes in to threaten Infernape out. Sylveon came in to be immune to a Dragon Pulse, so Latios had to switch out, and I missed a Toxic on that Clefable, which was Magic Guard, so it didn't really matter at all. Now I am going to go into the Dhelmise as it's going to take a Moonblast relatively well. Special attack drop doesn't matter because I don't have any special attacks on the Dhelmise this week. So, because I took that pretty well, and I'm pretty confident, well, I almost know for a fact that he doesn't have a fire move on the Clefable because he didn't use it against Skarmory. I'm going to be able to now Rapid Spin these rocks away. If you wanted to continue to stay in and Moonblast me, then that's fine. I could have Synthesis up and kept my Dhelmise at a high amount of health to deal adequately with the Latios that he still has in the back. He's just going to bring his Arcanine in again, and my Gyarados is a safe switch into this every time. Gyarados is looking to be in a great spot to deal with two of his three remaining Mons in Arcanine and Latios. This Flamethrower is going to do absolutely nothing to my Gyarados, and on this turn I am going to be able to wake up from the Sleep Talk and go for a Waterfall as he pulls the switch into Clefable yet again. So Waterfall is going to do actually significantly more damage this time to the Clefable than it did the first time that the Clefable switched into Mega Gyarados. So if I figure at this range I can kill the Clefable with two more Waterfalls. So if I get a flinch with the first Waterfall, then I'd be in a really, really good spot. I don't get the flinch, but I know that my Gyarados can easily take a Moonblast from the Clefable, so two waterfalls is easily going to be able to pick off this Clefable anyway. And now he's just down to his Arcanine and his Latios. The only thing that he can bring in here is his Latios to Thunderbolt or Dragon Pulse me to knock me out, but I'm not going to let that happen. Gyarados is my best way of beating the Arcanine, and it can still take it on well enough because Arcanine really can't touch that Mega Gyarados at all. So Sylveon is going to be the switch in. It's going to eat its Citrus Berry, which is going to allow it to take another Thunderbolt. But unfortunately here, I do make a misplay by going for Toxic, predicting a switch out into Arcanine, rather than just hyper voicing him and potentially knocking him out. In hindsight, there was no reason to go for a Toxic on that turn, predicting a switch, because I would have been able to survive any hit from Arcanine and get the Toxic off on the next turn anyway. So on this turn, though, I think D Willy does make a bit of a misplay, because I'm going to go for Protect just in case I survive the Toxic. And if I did, then the opposing Latios would have been taking extra damage from its own Toxic. But anyway, my Sylveon is going to go down here. And because its Arcanine is now in, I can bring Gyarados in much more comfortably against this and ensure that I get off another hit with the Gyarados. So he's going to decide to leave the Arcanine in against the Gyarados. Thankfully, he does not get a burn from the Flamethrower. Otherwise, I would have had to play the Rest and Sleep Talk Rolls game against his remaining two Mons. But Waterfall is going to get rid of that Arcanine. And his last Mon is going to be the Latios here. If he had decided to bring the Latios in against the Waterfall, I would have been totally fine with that. It would have gotten enough damage off on the Latios to the point where Infernape could have picked it off eventually with a Mach Punch. Dragon Pulse is going to knock out my Gyarados, and I'm pretty sure that he's Scarfed, and I know that he should be locked into this Dragon Pulse, and Delmise can take that comfortably and get a knockoff on this Latios to knock it out, and it does reveal that he was in fact Choice Scarf. So that's going to be the game. It's going to be a 2-0 victory for the Coquitlam Red Gyarados in their inaugural Draft League match. Good game to D Willy. This was a really fun and memorable first match of my PokeTubing career. Overall, I'd say I played this game pretty well, aside from the Sylveon misplay at the end of the game, because that actually ended up costing me a differential point. If I had just gone for the Hyper Voice against the Latios there and knocked it out, then once Arcanine came in, I could have brought in Gyarados and been able to 1v1 the Arcanine with my Gyarados alone, and I wouldn't have had to let my Gyarados go down to the Latios later in the game, because the Latios would have been dead. So I hope that lost differential point doesn't come back to bite me when it comes to determining playoffs positions. Other things that I would like to clean up about my play, I didn't actually notice that the Clefable was Magic Guard in the flow of battle. I should have noticed it the first time that it switched in after I had set up Stealth Rocks with Skarmory. I didn't notice it take the Rocks damage, so when I missed the Toxic with Sylveon against it on the switch in, I was thinking, damn, I'm not going to be able to find out if this Clefable is Magic Guard or Unaware, just in case I was going to be able to get a Sword Stance up with my Infernape. I wasn't sure if that was going to be a possible way to take down the Clefable in the late game. But of course it did turn out, the miss turned out not to matter, because of course he was Magic Guard. Probably the right decision, because if that was designed to be a Mega Gyarados check, then Unaware wasn't going to help him whatsoever, because Mold Breaker was just going to ignore that ability. Also, I think that I need to do a better job of sniffing out resist berries. The Celesteela, the Akaberry Celesteela really could have been problematic for me if it had managed to survive a fire move from Infernape that I didn't even go for on that turn. I just clicked Swords Dance predicting a switch, not even considering that he could be Akaberry Celesteela. So that's the kind of thing that I need to be aware of to make sure that I don't get baited and that I make more middle ground plays when necessary. I think everyone on my team this week did its job and performed really well, aside from maybe Sylveon, but that does have a lot to do with the fact that I identified his Latios to be Choice Scarfed in the relatively early game, so I thought that even while Toxic, that plus Gyarados was going to be able to keep the Latios in check relatively well. And it actually ended up being Delmise getting the kill on the Latios in the late game. Without a doubt, I have to give Mega Gyarados the MVP for this game, being able to take on 2/3 of his team, was even able to get the KO on his designated check to this Mega Gyarados. Also a special shout out to the counter Skarmory. Skarmory didn't see a lot of screen time in this game, but the little screen time that it did get, it was very, very crucial in the final outcome of the game, not allowing Mega Mawile to get a single KO in this game. So, very positive start for the Coquitlam Red Gyarados in the IBL D-League. Off to a 1-0 start, can't ask for anything better than that. Next week, we'll be back for our Week 2 game against Dr. Slacking and his